Welcome to Sierra College in Rockland, California for a live chat on igniting your CTE students' math skills. My name is Greg Ramseth. I'm from Placer Union High School District, a partner with Sierra in supporting students in their pursuit of college and career. And I'm here with my colleague from Sierra, Carol Pepper-Kittredge.
Hi, welcome to Sierra College. We're so glad you're with us this afternoon. My name is Carol. I'm the director of the Center of Applied Competitive Technologies, and I want to give an acknowledgement before we start our program to the University of West Virginia at Parkersburg. Without them, we wouldn't have been engaged in this project, so I really want to thank them before we start.
So we're all talking about college and career and supporting students, and we actually think we have a story today that supports that claim. And it wouldn't be if not for Katie Lucero and Bill Wenzel, who are two leaders on campus who've kind of crossed the aisle to work together in their respective disciplines and have really supported some things that have changed the way they've done instruction and that definitely changed the outcomes with the students. So we're going to ask them to introduce themselves, and we'll move on to the project, and we'll just take questions as we go. So let's go, Katie and Bill.
Well, welcome everybody. I've been a credentialed instructor since 1996, and early on in my career as an instructor with CDCR, I discovered a hook for students to incorporate math. If it was tied with either food or money, it seemed to work well. I've been a teacher here at Sierra College since 2002, full-time department chair since 2010 in the welding department, and I'm real happy to be here with Katie and have worked together with her since we started this project. Okay.
Well, thank you. And I'm Katie Lucero. I'm a mathematics professor here at Sierra College. I've been here for 10 years. I've been the department chair for 4 years, and I was raised in a family that really valued just application of skills in any form. So in my own career as a math professor, math teacher, I've always looked for that because I find that students can connect to what they're learning mathematically, academically, if there's an application. So I've done a few projects over the years. I've been involved in several grants that have connected CTE, our career and technical education fields, with our math fields, or math topics. And I've also actually taught some technical math classes out in industry and interviewed some of our industry partners because I have an interest in knowing what is it that our students are lacking when they show up for a job and what skills are actually required of them on the job. So I've used those interviews to kind of incorporate back into my own lessons. But I was very fortunate to be involved with this project with Bill, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, a little about me.
So give us the genesis of the project. What brought you together? And let's roll into kind of the nitty-gritty, because I think that's what people are anxious to hear.
All right. Well, we actually met for the very first time with this project. This opportunity came up through our CACT Center for the Applied Competitive Technology, and we met for the first time. We'd never met before, and we got to sit down and talk about how could we incorporate welding and math together for our students' benefit. And one of the things that we first started talking about was just how many of our CTE students at Sierra College, not even just specific to welding, but in general, our CTE students, they're deterred from actually getting an AA or an AS degree not because of their technical courses, but because of their English and math courses. Because often when they come to Sierra College and they assess to see where they would start in that sequence of math or English courses, they actually assess 3 to 4 semesters below what they would be required to get an AA or an AS degree. And for them, that's a daunting task to look at 2 years of taking math classes to get an AA or an AS degree. So that was the first thing that we actually started talking about, and that was one of our goals when we first sat down was, how could we maybe shorten that pathway for the students, or how could we possibly assess better?
And how could we give them a kind of a step up where they felt more comfortable? Because it seemed many of the CTE students were reluctant to walk across campus to the more academic classes, the history, the math, the English classes, and so with that they would many times walk away without a degree because they were very apprehensive. And so I think early on, one of the things we talked about trying to incorporate math into welding was, do we do a specialized math course? And while many other learning institutions approach it that way, we wanted to be a little different. We wanted to try something new and innovative. And so Katie kind of came up with this concept of let's see if we can get them to assess a little higher level so that they're more confident. And they may only have to take 1 or 2 math classes.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem with our students that assess. They often just haven't looked at the math in years or decades even, and so it's just that they if they were more familiar with the skills that are being assessed, that they might actually assess higher than what they would otherwise. So that became our goal, because we started looking at some curriculum. Bill presented some curriculum from some welding classes, and we had this nice dialogue, this nice conversation about how, wow, like you're actually teaching a lot of math skills right in these welding courses. Why don't we use what you're already doing, just incorporate a little bit more math, use a little more of the language that we use in mathematics, and hopefully at the end of it, the students not only will be more inclined to assess again and hopefully assess better, but also just feel more confident in their own math skills because they were learned in a setting that they're interested in, a setting that they can see the direct application to.
So we had developed a new course a few years before Katie and I met that incorporated, it was really kind of geared towards the students that had not taken any high school shop classes and maybe weren't out in the garage. They were the video game generation, and so they hadn't done much hands-on. And this course was all about trying to get them more comfortable in a shop setting. Not as much about welding that was incorporated, but not as much about welding, but really trying to get them to be comfortable with using hand power tools and equipment that might be in a metal fabrication facility. And that course is really based on a project, and so we utilize that for to drive our incorporation of math into the welding collaborative here. So Katie worked on the worksheets, and we made some modifications to the project to be able to add a couple more math components rather than a simple step-by-step. You want me to show that? Okay. Initially, one of our projects, this is the project that students do, and they just need to put a round hole in the center of the part. And so this is the first generation of the project with a bent hole in the bottom of a hibachi grill. So we modified it by having the student remove the bent hole down, which forced the student to have to do a little bit more math to figure that out, along with laying out the 2 holes for the pivot and the stop before they raised on the nut on the back and assembled this bottom part, which we call the air box. That kind of brings us to the point of just language.
Yeah,
just trying
absolutely.
to figure out in our conversations, maybe it wasn't a barrier, but it was a discovery that we all called things different.
Yeah.
I'll let you explain when you called the side.
Yeah, it was fun when we first started talking about this project. We were looking at that hibachi grill, and I was saying, oh wow, that's awesome. That would be perfect to incorporate math into the building of this hibachi grill. And I said, oh look, you even have sides that are trapezoids. And then Bill said, yeah, they are trapezoids. And I said, well, what do you call them? And he said, well, we just call them side panels. And so it's just having that dialogue about how, we just, in our classrooms, in my very academic math classroom and in his very hands-on technical classroom, we just are using different language for the same thing, but we can incorporate that together and share those, those words, those language for the students' benefit.
So we had some moments of discovery ourselves.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
the process.
Yeah, I think one of the other ones that we talked about in the very beginning was just, fractions, of course, are a huge obstacle, a huge challenge for students. I mean, I hear that every day in every level of classroom, all the way up through my calculus classrooms. I hate fractions, and I'm sure Bill hears it in his classroom too. So, just one of the things that we talked about in the beginning is like, well, we can teach fraction skills by using just the denominators that are common on a tape measure, that are common when you're making measurements. Use denominators that are, powers of 2, the 2, the 4, the 8, the 16, and the 32, because those are denominators and fractions that come up often when you're measuring and cutting metal. So.
And one of the things that was pretty interesting is, the very first worksheet was learning how to use tape measure, and we used a very simple project of have a few students together and a grab bag where they take certain size parts out and sketch it and do the math. And not completely noticeable in the beginning, all the students did pretty well if they had somebody on that group that could read the tape measure. Everybody else followed pretty well. And as we moved along, as we ran into kind of let you explain how, I came back to Katie and I said, well, things are going well up until worksheet number 5, I think it was. You want to show, is that order of operations?
Yeah, order of operations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, and we discovered the students really ran into a brick wall with adding, subtracting fractions. They had been doing the worksheets and turning them in and pretty engaged, and then it really kind of stopped. And I got a hold of Katie and said, things are not going as well now with adding, subtracting fractions, and we put our heads together and we kind of changed gears completely, and decided to we create a worksheet called the door game. Mm-hmm. And it was more about using a tape measure in a group setting again. So they went back to something that was more comfortable, but on a whole different level. And it kind of regenerated things again, but it was a real eye-opener, I think, for us to realize that was kind of a major, because the students started at that point. They had been comfortable enough to say that this is where we really, many of the students said, I can't do the adding subtraction, I don't understand it.
Right. Yeah, and that was what was so great about this project for Bill and I was, it was a very open dialogue throughout the whole project, where whenever there was a challenge, I was creating the worksheets with Bill's help, and then he was implementing them in the classroom. But when there was a problem with it, it was a really nice open dialogue. Well, hey, we need to change gears here. We need to restructure, maybe do a little bit more review on adding or subtracting the fractions, and that's where the door game came about. Worksheet came mm-hmm. about, or idea came about. So that was a really nice dialogue that we were able to have, because I think, and Bill can speak about this, but I think there's also a comfort level between two fields like math and welding. Teaching math in a welding course, or even me teaching welding in a welding application in a math course, and it's really nice to have that open dialogue with an expert in the field.
It creates a partnership.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So that was kind of an overview, I guess, of how we ended up where we did. But if we want to look at a couple specific worksheets,
sure.
We've got a couple queued up here.
Let's do that. Do we want to look at the vent hole? I think we covered.
Let's talk about the vent. Let's talk about the vent hole a little bit, just with order of operations.
Yeah, we start out with the students having just a blank piece, they're pre-cut for them. At this level, this course level, they're handed the part already pre-made. As far as the blank size, and then they have to lay it out and begin to do the obviously first the layout, and then marking where the holes are going to be, punch the hole for the large hole, and then they have to drill the other 2 holes. So they begin to see that you need to do things in a certain order, and we tied that directly in with the math, how you have to do things in a certain order. Those parts of the project had to be done before there was any kind of welding onto the part, and before the 4 sides were welded together to make this air box at the bottom. So it was a real nice correlation behind that understanding of order of operations in math.
Right. We were able to tie an actual application in welding, the order in which you do things, drill a hole, weld on the bolt. We were able to tie that directly back into, well, the same thing in math. There's a specific order, specific rules that dictate the order that you perform operations in math. And that's how we kind of put those 2 ideas together to create this worksheet that I actually have up here. And it was our 5th worksheet for the vent hole layout. And just kind of in general, the way we started the worksheets was to give a little bit of background information, but then to go ahead and continue on through the worksheet, talk about a little bit of incorporation. Oops, there we go. Do a little bit of an application here, here's the order of operations that Bill discussed when you're actually creating that hole, that vent hole, listing out the order of operations, and then actually using those in a math sense again. So much more, specific, standard set of problems here from math, and then we get back into, okay, well, let's go back to the vent hole, and now let's talk about how you're actually going to do this specific task, and what is the math behind that specific task. So they actually, had to draw things in here and do some computation.
How do they respond to using, I'm just asking a question here right out of the chute.
Sure.
How do they respond to just all of a sudden doing a worksheet in Welding?
What's interesting is there wasn't any resistance. Because this was the kind of a very entry-level course, I guess the assumption is this is just what's expected of them. This is how we do it here. And so they rolled right into it, and I think they actually in a lot of ways appreciated the idea that they can lay it out. Many students really liked to lay it out first before they went out to the lab and actually did the project. So it not only was not resisted, but I think it was kind of valued, and many students asked for, hey, I didn't get one of those sheets, can I get another one of those sheets? If they missed a week, they were asking for that worksheet. So pretty nice when students are asking to learn math. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I remember just when we were looking through those worksheets, I mean, you had pretty significant turn-in rate on those completed, worksheets turned in, which was
And we elected early on to not make those mandatory. We said this is a voluntary basis, and we had up until the Great Wall of adding and subtracting fraction worksheet, we had literally everybody turned in worksheets, and then what had happened at that point is students were like weren't ready to turn it in. Can we have another week? Can you go over that a little bit more? We go over a little bit more, and it was pretty clear when that was going on, the adding, subtracting fractions, that they were a little overwhelmed. And what's interesting, it isn't all the students. There's always a couple students in the room that are, this is comfort level for them, they can do it. But there's also a lot of students in the room that are reluctant to admit that they're struggling. And I think as that happened, a few weeks, almost a month into the semester, that was a benefit too, as there was a comfort level with students. They were invested at that point.
Yeah.
So how'd you get past the big wall?
We did the door game. They had to go around.
You did the door game. Okay.
They had to go around, find the largest door and the smallest door, and add the total amount of area, and the team that had the smallest total area won a prize.
Okay.
That was a very simple process, but it kind of got them over the hump for some reason. And of course, it kind of regenerated them. They weren't sitting there trying to do the work. Yeah. So, and it was timed.
And it was a group project,
a little bit back to that group effort, I think, got a little bit more comfort level. And so there was actually more learning going on in the hallway of adding the width of the door and the height of the door together. Learning was happening at the door instead of at the whiteboard.
Yeah. What's the next step on the hibachi? What was your next kind of
part of the process?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we actually have another worksheet we were going to talk about. One of the fun things about the hibachi grill was it actually lends itself really nicely to creativity. So this particular class, just because of the project, had a lot of buy-in, I think, from the students, and then they get to walk away with a finished product. They get to be creative. So it was a good project to incorporate math into. Well, not even incorporate math into, just highlight the math that was already there. Yeah. So one of the things that we looked at was this grill top.
Yeah, they started out at kind of the standard grill. The accessory part was always made up with there was a little bit of math here, obviously some tape measure work, but to lay out the spacing. And pretty plain, mundane part of the process. And so what we did was to kind of open the door to the students and let them start to be a little bit more creative and put other things in, all the way up to the point where they can get very creative. And then in that process, we developed, Katie and I worked together to develop how much material is it going to take. We lay that out, and have enough material to attach to this side to this side. And so the students began to get a little bit more, I guess, engaged as it became more creative.
Yeah.
I think it opened the doors, not just on a math level, but on a whole other the level of having to use different equipment rather than just cut the bars in a certain length. So that was math worksheet 7.
That was worksheet 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if we want to, we could look at. We had that one up here too. Yeah. Worksheet 7. We just
we still had a lot of fractions in it.
We did. We did. We kept them going on fractions even after the big challenge.
And as I think back, one of the things we started out when we first met is I think we were going to have them a lot farther along by the time they got to worksheet 7.
Yeah.
And what we discovered is we needed to go a little slower.
Yeah, we had to back off a little bit.
And stay on fractions a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Are you both in the same room? I'm sorry to interject, but Kate, are you in class with Bill?
No, I was not in class with Bill. Nope. We
But you consulted on
we
kind of
did.
getting ready for it, and then you'd give feedback.
And I'd look
Bill.
at all the worksheets. And,
Okay.
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah.
I recently got to sit in on a classroom that was going through this process with these worksheets, and it was really interesting. It was really fun to see. We can talk more about that, I think, later.
Yeah, I think we can. I think it's pretty exciting to hear from somebody that they want to learn more math. Most of the time, welding students, they want to, when can we go out and weld? That's the priority. But this was and we'll talk more about that later, but I think it's pretty exciting to see that happen live.
Yeah, definitely.
So on that worksheet, they started out with the layout.
We could take a look at that worksheet. This is the grill construction, so here would just be the standard layout, and then they did have that chance to make up actually 2 different designs, and then for both of those designs, we actually did have them calculate out what would be the amount of rod that they'd need to construct those 2 variations. So that often involves some math.
It did. And then farther on, I think this was worksheet 7. Worksheet 8, they actually were doing the cost calculations and how steel is purchased by weight, so that they had to do weight conversions and cost per pound based on the weight per foot of the item. And so it became a lot more math. They had to do this part first to know how much they needed. So it was a stepping stone for them.
Right. What's next in the process?
Well,
we're getting actually down to the towards the end here. We have a few questions.
We've got okay.
One person in the Hangout, but we just want to make sure that you've kind of encapsulated the whole piece so that we've got that information out there, because we are going to post things on the website. You have a PowerPoint we'll put in there.
Sure.
These documents are on there. I would imagine they could be repurposed. We've got a question in from John Zay, professor at Sac City. He's doing HVAC, and would some of these worksheets be transferable to other areas of CTE?
Yeah, I think the general idea of the worksheets should be transferable, and then it's just kind of a matter of taking a look at what math is within your discipline or what project you're using, and then incorporating that application into the worksheet. But the math behind the worksheets is very transferable, and then it would just be a slight modification on the specific project.
Yeah.
I think
so we alluded to that earlier.
There's some challenges we had.
We had some challenges, but one of the exciting things that Katie had mentioned just here recently is one of our part-time instructors had mentioned that his students were asking to actually understand more on fractions, and this is only about 3 weeks before the end of the semester, and so Katie and I sat in on the class, and it was pretty interesting to watch an instructor that normally doesn't teach math be able to incorporate the language of math in with the project, and have the students asking questions and be dialoguing in a very positive way.
Oh yeah, they were, and throughout the whole time I was there, they were engaged, they were working on the worksheet, they were asking him questions, they were following along, answering his prompts. I mean, it was a very engaged classroom.
It was amazing to watch. And so, I think for both of us, we have plans. Katie, you want to tell us what you're going to do next?
Yeah. Well, one of my big projects in the near future is I was just recently awarded a sabbatical where I get to actually go the opposite direction, which I've been wanting to do actually for years, which is to actually take CTE applications and incorporate it back into a math classroom. So I'm working on developing some curriculum for an accelerated algebra course that will be taught in a completely different way from our traditional courses. It's going to be very project-based, very hands-on, and luckily I have some friends in the CTE department. Bill has already volunteered to help me out, because what I would really love to do is have my applications, my projects be directly from our own CTE fields, and then hopefully have guest speakers or even maybe a mobile welding unit
or project
come out so my students will be able to see to see what they're doing in the classroom directly applied, on the job in the field. So.
And then engage in how valuable what they're learning in math is an application. It's wonderful. And since Katie and I work together, I've actually rewritten a number of our courses where we have a math component in each higher level course. There's a higher level math series in those courses, and because our goal, we wanted to do something different than you've got to take a technical math class along with your required classes for whatever discipline you're in. Rather than approach it that way, here at Sierra College, we elected to incorporate math in all our welding programs, and we've heard nothing but positive, both from the students and actually industry. So it's been a really fun project working with UK, and we're going to continue on, I think, and it's been really enlightening to see how excited the students are, which kind of would have surprised me, I guess, in the beginning.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I think there's always some worry about that students' buy-in to do math in a welding class. But I think, and it's also, the project ended, I think in 2012, and they're still going on, these worksheets and it's still being done in the welding department in these courses, even though the actual project is done.
And I guess we should mention the first time we did this, we had two identical classes, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And we taught one of those classes in a traditional manner where they did this same project, but no infusion of math. And they did a pre-test, and then they did a post-test. The afternoon, or I can't remember which whether it was morning or afternoon, one of those classes had the math infused worksheets, and they did the pre-test and the post-test. And interesting enough, both classes actually scored much higher on the post-test, but the infused math was hugely higher in the post-test. So it was proven fact on the results.
It sounds like you just had good engagement too, and students were definitely connected. So if I'm a high school guy or gal, or I'm a person at a community college and I want to get something going with a colleague, any tips to kind of take this? I mean, you two came together. It seemed kind of serendipitous. But any tips for folks who want to replicate something like this? Maybe take the worksheets. I mean, how'd you get started? I mean, we've just got a couple minutes left, so we'll probably end with this.
Well, I would just say just be open to meeting with your colleagues, just dialoguing about, where is the crossover within your fields. I mean, I think that was just where we were both open to that, and I think it was really helpful to just talk to each other, just sit down and have a conversation, about what we were each doing in our classrooms.
I think so. I think the challenge is to just reach out to that other side and ask the question, hey, you have any ideas for me to incorporate this into my classroom? And that can go both ways, from a math instructor to a CTE instructor. It's real easy to have it go either way.
Yeah, just walk across campus.
There you go. There you go. Across the divide. So we've got a person in the Hangout here, and I believe it's coming in from Colfax High School. Jonathan Schwartz. Would you introduce yourself, and maybe did you have a question for our two folks here?
Yeah. So this is Jonathan Schwartz. I teach CNC manufacturing and pre-engineering at Colfax High. My real question is, do you think the students leave with a lot more confidence to math classes? I mean, do they actually get past that wall with a better feeling towards math?
From what I have seen now, a couple years later, are those students that took this first level Weld 10 class, many of those students now are at the graduation level. And so I've seen those students at 2, 3, 4 of the classes as well as part-time instructors, have seen those students, and we definitely see the results of the work. The students are more comfortable, absolutely.
Yeah, and through surveys they did suggest, I mean, we didn't actually track this, but they suggested that they would be more likely to go back and take an assessment again, and because they were more confident, and I'm sure just based off of the way we wrote the pre and the post test was based off of our assessment, so if they did go, they would have done better after the course.
Great, thanks. So we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank Katie and Bill for being bold leaders on your campus and kind of forging into some new territory, because it obviously has had some great outcomes for your students. And I think Jonathan's question was a great one too. It's got to go both ways. You know, what's in it for the math department? What's in it for the CTE department? And it sounds like you've got a double win out of this. So any final comments before we sign off? We're actually at the half an hour, and I think we were trying to kind of button it up about that time. So anything else you want to add for the good of the cause?
I guess my statement I would say is, you know, if you're the least bit interested in doing this, don't hold back. You find a colleague, find somebody, whether it's at another campus, whether it's within your campus, you know, and see what other people are doing. If they've thought about trying to incorporate another discipline or part of another discipline within theirs, don't hold back.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. So I think that was a good way to end.
That's great. Well, thanks for joining us for this live chat. We hope to do more like this, and we'll be signing off for now. So thanks for joining us. And I want to make one more point as we go over. There will be more resources posted, so please check back at both the YouTube channel. If you want to engage in a conversation with either Katie or Bill, just put a comment down there, and we'll see to it that they get it and can respond to your questions, any kind of follow-up. So again, thank you for joining us, and have a good evening.